everyone. I am so excited to be back for season 2 of Gab with Garima. That seems so weird to be in a second season. We took a break over the summer and we didn't have any episodes because we were, catching up. There's a lot of travel, there's a lot going on. So we're back and we would still love suggestions on topics. But today we are talking about imposter syndrome. And I really wanted to talk about this today because of two very distinct conversations that I've had that were very shocking to me. So the first was we had a leadership meeting about a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago, and someone started talking about how they were in a role and it was difficult for them, and sometimes they just were unsure about what they were doing and whether or not they were making the right decisions. So I said, "Well, I feel that. I feel like that too." And the whole room got quiet and they're like, what do you mean you feel like that? You can't possibly feel like that. You're confident all the time and you seem to know what you're talking about, and you don't understand what this feels like. You have no idea what it feels like to question yourself or to feel like a fraud or to not understand the next steps. So I was like, what are you talking about? Of course I do. I feel like that all the time. And we ended up having this great conversation in our entire leadership team and found out that everybody was struggling with this, that it was something that everybody worries about. We are a fast moving, crazy growing startup, and we are figuring things out every single day. We are in uncharted territory. It's normal that every single one of us questions sometimes what we're doing and how we're doing it. So that was really interesting. And then another conversation happened a few weeks ago with my cousin, who I love and adore and completely look up to. And she was talking about challenges in looking for a career path and what are the next things that she should do. And we were just having this discussion around it. And should she apply for positions that maybe are a little bit more challenging or more senior than the roles that she's in? And so she said, I just don't feel like I know this. And I feel like they're going to look at me and say, they're going to know that I don't know how to do these things. Or they're going to say, why are you here? Or they're going to think of me as a fraud. And, she didn't say it in so many words. And I was like, yeah, but that's normal. Everybody feels like that. And what's the worst case scenario? You don't get it. But yeah, like that's normal. Like when you're applying for a new job or when you're trying to change your career, it's normal to wonder, um, am I the right person? Why am I getting this? Am I a fraud? Will they know that maybe I don't know how to do all of these things specifically? And again, her response to me was, what are you talking about? There's no way you ever feel like that. You are so confident. You always know. You're always talking. You do all these things. There's no possible way that you have any idea what I'm talking about. And I was, again, in shock. And I was like, no, dude, you don't understand. So I wanted to first put it out there that over 73% of individuals in the world face some kind of imposter syndrome. And that percentage only goes up in higher achieving individuals. So, the first thing I want to say is that you are not alone. Having imposter syndrome, what is it, right? It's this feeling of, am I the right person for this position? Am I the right person for this relationship? Do I really know the things that I should know? Am I well prepared enough? Will people around me know that I don't know? Do I seem like a fraud? Um, I hope that I'm not, and I hope that no one can tell that I am really trying to figure this out on my own. And that these are all very normal feelings. And it was actually really cool for me to have some of these discussions around imposter syndrome because it almost made me feel better, right? It made me feel like, wow, I'm normal. This is not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy to wonder, right? So for me, let me tell you how imposter syndrome affects me. So I believe that one of the things I tend to be really good at is I'm pretty positive and I talk a lot, right? Like I can talk my way into things or out of things. I've been in sales for forever. And so I think that I'm good at some of those things. And sometimes I will get into a position, I'm like, wait, maybe I just convinced someone that I know what I'm doing, but I don't actually know. Maybe I'm really good at convincing. Maybe I'm just a really good, maybe I'm just good at selling, but I don't really know. The other thing is anybody who knows me knows that I always talk about luck. And I'm always like, someone will be like, oh, great job there. I'm like, I was lucky. I was super lucky. I'm always lucky, and that's just how it works. And because I'm so lucky, that's why these things happen for me. And so I always kind of say things like that. And I didn't even realize that saying that was just me having imposter syndrome. That's what it was. It was just me having imposter syndrome, being like, oh, the reason that happened is because I'm so lucky, not because I worked super hard, did a bunch of research, tried to do all these things, but my response is always, nope. I'm just really, really lucky. And if you know me, you know that I've said that to you at least once, if not 100 times. Why did I catch this flight and everybody else missed it? Why did I find something that I lost? Why did I happen to get that appointment? My response is always that I'm lucky. And my husband gets really frustrated when I say that because he's like, it's not luck. Stop saying that's luck. You probably were the only person who made the call 14 times. You probably were the only person who did. And I was like, and I always say, you don't know. You don't understand. It's just luck. So I want to talk about that today because I'm sure that I'm knowing now that I'm not the only one, that it affects over 73% of people. I wanted to talk about that. So first of all, I do welcome your questions, but I want to first talk about the vicious cycle that is imposter syndrome, right? So there's this vicious cycle that is imposter syndrome. We'll bring up a picture. So what is it? So first you get a new task or project, right? You start that. You get anxious. You're like, oh my God. You start maybe procrastinating, but then you over prepare. You do a whole bunch of work. You over prepare. You know every in and out. You've done all the work. You complete that project. You feel like, hey, I'm glad that I finished it. But then once you finished it, you're like, "Ah, I bet someone else might have done that better." Or, you know what? Someone says, oh, you did a great job. Oh, no, I was lucky. I was lucky. Or anybody else could have done that too. And then you keep saying those things to yourself. And then you start feeling again like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, maybe someone else would have been better. Maybe that would have been better suited by someone who knew this better. Maybe I'm not the right person for this role. Maybe I shouldn't be the one who's completing this assignment or this project. And then it happens all over again. So that is the vicious cycle that is imposter syndrome. And this happens over and over and over again till it becomes part of your life. So everything you do, you're not saying, oh, the reason why this went so well, or the reason why I was able to complete this or do this well or handle it by this deadline is because of me. You're saying, oh, it just is what it is. Anybody could have done it. Anybody in the world could have done it. I recently heard someone say that, yeah, so I got a doctorate, but anybody could have done that. I'm pretty sure anybody couldn't have done that. So realizing that is, again, crazy. So how do we get over imposter syndrome? First of all, does anybody have any questions? If anybody has any questions, feel free to keep the chat going. Let me know. But if not, I'm going to keep going and talk about how do you get over this, or how do we work towards not having these feelings? Because I know sometimes that anxiety, sometimes that doubt of, can I do this, the not knowing what you don't know and maybe not even knowing what you know is very, very challenging and can sometimes be paralyzing. So step one, you're here, right? Step one, you are here. First step is always acceptance or admittance. So admitting that you have imposter syndrome, you have already completed the first step in terms of getting rid of it. Psychologists have said for a long time that the best way to get rid of imposter syndrome is by talking about it. Well, I'm not sure if I totally agree with that as a whole, but I do know for myself, just knowing that others around me have the same feeling definitely has made me feel a whole lot better. So accepting that you have it. So once you accept that you have it, number two is figuring out what kind of imposter you are. So there's 5 types of people that have imposter syndrome. Okay. So when we look at those 5 types, we'll have a little grid that comes up, but you're going to figure out what type of imposter are you. The first one is the expert. This is the person who, I'm the expert. This is me. This is the type of imposter that I am. I love to research. I don't make a single decision without doing a ton of research. I read all the time. I research everything. I can tell you ingredients to some water. I really over prepare. So I like to know everything. So I feel like when I complete a task, do I really know everything? I mean, I even do this when I shop. Well, should I buy that? Because what if I don't know about all of the other shoes that are out there? And if I buy this one, then there might be 30 others that I haven't purchased because they might be a better set for me. So the first one is definitely understanding that Are you an expert? Like, is that your first kind of version of imposter? And Scott, I'm going to have you bring that grid one more time. Okay. So the expert is that it's the person who does a ton of research. They're really, they're over prepared. They do a bunch of research for them. The second one is the perfectionist. Sometimes they have a high level of anxiety. They're the ones who want every single thing done right every single time. It's the people who may say things like, if one thing's wrong, then that means everything's wrong. And they work so hard at having every tiny detail right no matter what. The third one is the natural genius, right? Things come super easy to you. It's easy. You learn a skill, you're like, it's easy. And then you wonder, well, everybody else should know how to do this too because it was super easy for me. So I must be a fraud because everybody else knows how to do it. The other problem with the natural genius is that when they don't get something quickly, they get very frustrated. It becomes a problem for them because they're so used to learning things or picking things up fast. The fourth one is someone who's a little bit more individualistic. They like to do things on their own. They don't want to ask for help or have anybody else even know because they feel like in doing so, people will realize that they don't know what they're talking about. And the last one is a superhero, right? So the superhero is the person who pushes themselves crazy hard. They're workaholics. They're up at 4 a.m. They've gotten more done by 10 than you've even done after you got out of bed. They may not have work-life balance. They are constantly on the go, and it affects sometimes their physical or mental health. And there's a great question, can you fall into multiple categories? Absolutely. You can absolutely fall into multiple categories of being an imposter. And sometimes you may be one and sometimes you may be the other. But understanding that there are 5 types of imposter syndrome lets you understand what you may be doing and manifesting in terms of those skills. So if I know that I spend a lot of time preparing and that's what I do, that is my safety blanket. I feel like I will feel like less of a fraud if I have read every book, know all the details. But if I know that that is my tendency, then it's important for me to admit that, embrace that, and realize that I'm doing it. And maybe on the next one, maybe something else. So I thought paddleboarding was easy. It was the first time I did it, but so my response to that when someone's like, "Oh, how come it was so easy for you?" My response was, "I'm a skier, so I think it was just easy because, it was just lucky. And I think anybody can do it. You just focus." But realizing that maybe you do have a different skill set than others around you. And that's great because that's why we're all individuals. We all have completely different skill sets. We all have different things that we do really well. So realizing that, so first we're going to accept that we are an imposter, that we feel that way, but we're not an imposter, we just have imposter syndrome. The second is we're going to think about what type of imposter we are and how we manifest those symptoms. Now I'm going to give you a few ways of how to get over imposter syndrome. Now look, the last thing to change in life is your feelings, right? Your emotions. You can change some behavior, you can change how you act, you can do those things, but the way you feel about things, the way you internalize it is usually and most often the last things to change. So you're not going to walk away from here saying, done. I'm not an imposter anymore. I figured this out. That's not going to happen. But how do we cope with it and deal with it better? So the first is we've talked about it, break the silence, let people know, talk about this thing, ask them, hey, have you ever had imposter syndrome? How do you handle it? Right? So that's our acceptance and our knowing. Then we're going to separate our feelings from the facts. So, how do you feel about something versus what actually happened? So, you may feel like you aren't you don't know what you're doing. But what is the fact? What are those things and can you create what those facts are? So, if it's am I good at this job? Maybe the feeling is I'm not. Maybe the facts are, well, these are the 10 skills that I need to be good at this position. Do I meet those 10 skills? Oh, hey, I do. So I just separated my feelings from the fact, and I was able to look at this from a non emotional manner, right? I was able to look at it very, very clearly. Next is recognize when you should feel like a fraud. There are certain times where you might feel like a fraud because of the position that you're in. So for me, often being the only woman present in a boardroom or sometimes being the youngest person in a boardroom made me feel like a fraud. But that's totally normal because those are situations where I would feel like a fraud. So going into that situation knowing, hey, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. I'm going to feel like I don't belong here, and that's okay because maybe that's okay because everybody doesn't feel that. Everybody else is not looking at it that way, but I'm aware that I'm going to have these feelings. So I'm recognizing that in these positions I may feel a little bit awkward. I may feel like a fraud, and that's okay. The next one, accentuate the positive. So, if you are a perfectionist, an expert, a superhero, think about all of those things that you're doing. You are over researching, you are working like crazy, you are being a perfectionist. Think about all of those things, those steps that you are taking that are above and beyond the people around you, right? It's not just about luck. It's about what are you doing to bring those things your way? How are you preparing? Are you overworking? Are you the one who did a whole bunch of work? Are you the one who's really focused down on what is this project and how do I do it? What is the positive side of those symptoms of your imposter syndrome? And how does that make your work product better, right? Um, so let me just look at this comment. My imposter syndrome tends to manifest itself when I don't get words of affirmation. Yes. So it's possible to require outside. I'm going to challenge this though, because it is possible to require someone from the outside saying that you did a great job in order to not have imposter syndrome. But my challenge to that is that often when you get those words of affirmation, your first thought is, you're just saying that. You don't mean that. But what do you really mean? I was just lucky, right? People are generally pretty bad at taking compliments. So sometimes we say it's words of affirmation, but it's really not that. It's you knowing that you have put forward a good work product. And then when you get the words of affirmation, they'll mean so much more to you because you actually agree with them, as opposed to requiring someone to say, hey, you did a great job. And if someone did that to you all the time, I'm pretty sure your response would be, you're just saying, you say that all the time. You don't even mean that. Right? It's like asking your husband if you're fat before he even turns around. He says no, right? Like you're not even looking. You don't know. You have no idea. So it's not necessarily just um ad, words of affirmation. What you're really looking for is that internal confidence so that you don't need that external input to make you feel better. The next thing I will say is, and I've told a lot of you this, but if you haven't done and I know I say this on a lot of different topics, but if you haven't done a personal analysis, if you haven't done a SWOT analysis of yourself where you've written out your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, and if you don't update that at least once or twice a year, you are going to give yourself more imposter syndrome. You should know very clearly these are the things that I'm good at. And it's okay that these are things that I'm not bad at, that I'm not good at. It's okay. It's okay that I'm not good at it's okay. Make sure you know what you are really, really, really good at and hone those skills. Know that you're in your position because of those things, not despite them, right? So this is really important because often we assume that just because we're good at something, everybody else must be as well. And that is a very common theory or misbelief in people with imposter syndrome that, oh, if I can do it, then everybody else can too. What's the difference? What's so special about me? Well, figure it out and do it by facts. Take the emotion out of this. Create a SWOT analysis that says, these are the 5, 10, 15 things that I know I am really, really, really good at. These are the 5, 10, 15 things that I'm not really good at. So if someone tells me I'm not good at it, it's okay because I'm not. But these 10 things, man, I'm a rock star at these. So if someone wants someone to do this, yeah. Like for me, I'm great at sales. You want me to be in sales? Perfect. I am not going to be the person who's going to handle your development and or IT. That's just not going to be me. I'm not good at that. Okay? Realizing that is freeing. It's freeing to be able to say, I'm just not good at that. It's also freeing to be able to own it and say, oh, you have a sales question? I got that. I'm really good at that. I didn't start doing that until this year. So for me, it wasn't until this year that I started saying, no, no, I think I'm probably the best person at doing this, but I'm not the best person at doing that. Let's find who the best person is to do that and let me handle this because I'm really, really good at that. Um, that's so freeing. It makes you feel like you can do and live in your sphere of genius, which automatically boosts your confidence, which therefore gets rid of your imposter syndrome. And it sounds silly, but we talked about that vicious cycle of what the imposter syndrome really is, and that questioning, that self-doubt, and those fraudulent feelings. Taking that and kind of changing the script and saying, wait a second, but I am really good at this. And these are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on my strengths. I'm going to really, really make sure that that's what's seen. And I'm going to continue working on that. Then your confidence builds. And then when someone says, hey, you did a great job, you're like, yeah, hell yeah, I did. I know I did. I'm really good at that. Um, and it makes it feel a lot more authentic, and you feel a lot more authentic. The most important one, I will say, in terms of steps to kind of overcome imposter syndrome is fake it till you make it. Understand, like I said, that everybody else around you is probably facing the same fear, the same self doubt, the same feelings of can I do it? Can I make it? Do I understand it? The same idea of lacking confidence in certain things, but faking it till you make it, right? Just okay, I'm here now. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to take this risk. I'm going to take this challenge. I'm just going to do it. And what's my worst case scenario? What's my worst case scenario? Okay, well, maybe someone realizes I don't know what I'm doing. Or maybe I actually do an amazing job and I kick ass at it. And then my plateau gets even like my plateau gets higher and I'm not there anymore. I'm moving up. Um, Kind of getting out of that comfort zone and being okay with the challenge is really important because that's where you build confidence. Because then think about it like a baby who's learning how to run, right? At first, they take a couple steps and it's super wobbly and they don't know if they can do it. But now if you think about yourself and you think about yourself walking or running or anything like that, you don't even think about it. It just happens. It just happens. You know how to do it. Your body knows how to do it. The first time you did it, though, you didn't. And it was a comfort zone that you had to break out of. And it was a challenge that you had to accept in order to become confident in that behavior. And now when you're walking, I'm pretty sure no one thinks, oh, people must know I don't know how to walk. People must know I only learned that 38 years ago. People don't, that's not what someone's thinking, right? Because you've overcome that challenge. You've gotten past that. You've increased your comfort zone. And as you keep doing that and you add more and more skills, the confidence and the skills that you have will only increase. So, with that, does anybody have any questions, comments, whatever? I hope that helps. Um, I am so happy to know that it's not just me who faces imposter syndrome. Not because I want all of you to have it, but it does make my anxiety feel a lot better to know that it's not just me. And I hope that it does the same for you. And I hope that when you look at someone and say that, "Ah, they must have it all together, and wow, they're so confident, they're so this," I hope that your second thought is, I wonder if they feel the same way I do. And I can pretty much guarantee you that at least 7 out of 10 of them do, if not more. So I really hope that you guys can use some of these tactics, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.